Welcome. My name is Sierra Sanderson and I am an attorney with MNK Law. Today we are going to be highlighting a few areas where employers tend to be vulnerable to employment-related litigation. This video will discuss meal and rest breaks, off-the-clock work, and unpaid wages. Before we get into discussing these areas, it's also important to have a solid foundation of understanding about the classification of employees, specifically an exempt employee versus a non-exempt employee. In order to determine the eligibility for benefits and overtime status to ensure compliance with federal and California laws and regulations, an employer will classify employees as exempt or non-exempt. Now, exempt employees tend to be our executive, administrative, and professional positions, exercising decision-making and discretion within that role. Generally, they'll be compensated with a salary. Non-exempt employees generally tend to be those on an hourly wage who don't meet this exempt criteria. Now, the distinction between these is crucial because non-exempt employees are eligible to receive overtime pay for overtime hours worked. Now that we have an understanding, let's move on to meal and rest breaks. Meal and rest breaks are intended to provide non-exempt employees an opportunity to get away from work. Non-exempt employees are not permitted to perform any work during meal periods and rest breaks. This chart outlines how a non-exempt employee becomes entitled to meal breaks and rest breaks. All non-exempt employees are provided an uninterrupted, unpaid meal break of at least 30 minutes if they have worked more than 5 hours in a workday. Non-exempt employees who work more than 10 hours on a given day are entitled to a second 30-minute meal break. However, if the total hours worked is no more than 12 hours, the second meal period may be waived by mutual consent between the employer and the employee, only if the first meal period was not waived. Non-exempt employees are entitled to a 10-minute paid rest break every 4 hours of work or any time exceeding any major fraction thereof, and I'll explain what that means in a minute. But less than 3.5 hours, there is no entitlement to a rest break. We can see how entitlement to rest breaks differ depending on shift length in this table provided. For example, if a non-exempt employee works 6.5 hours, you must provide the employee with 2 paid rest breaks. The first rest break covers the first 4 hours worked, and the second covers the remaining 2.5 hours worked. This is required because 2.5 hours is a major fraction of 4 hours. Here is a table going over what we just discussed. So as you can see, Bob works 8 to 5. He's got at least 30 minutes for lunch along with 2 paid 10-minute rest breaks. Rest breaks must be taken as close to the middle of each work period as practicable. Now, a caution for employers. If an employer does not allow an employee to take meal breaks or rest breaks, the employer will owe the employee 1 hour's wages for each meal break or rest break the employee was denied. There is no such thing as off-the-clock work. Non-exempt employees must only complete work on the clock. Off-the-clock work might look like pre-shift duties, post-shift duties, administrative duties, and work performed during a meal or rest break. Caution: work off the clock is compensated at an employee's regular hourly wage. If off-the-clock work is performed in excess of the maximum number of work hours, the employee will then be eligible for overtime pay. Under California overtime law, employers are required to pay non-exempt employees overtime for work over the maximum number of hours of work. Non-exempt employees who do not have an alternative work week schedule are entitled to overtime pay if they work more than 8 hours in a single work day, more than 40 hours in a single work week, or more than 6 days in a single work week. Another caution to employers: employees are entitled to minimum overtime pay at 1.5 times their regular hourly rate of pay. Employees working in excess of 12 hours in a single workday or in excess of 8 hours on the 7th day of a work week, they are paid at double their regular hourly rate of pay. Thank you for joining us. If you need assistance or have questions, you can find us at mnklawyers.com or email us at info@mnklawyers.com. We're happy to help.